In the city of Bayelsa, Nigeria, a dark secret locked in the shadows. Benita, a young beautiful girl, harbored a malevolent heart, nurtured by tears of resentment towards her stepmother, Nchedo. Benita's childhood was filled with laughter and love. Mr. Omenka and Mrs. Adugo were high school sweethearts who adored each other. Their home in Bayelsa was always filled with warmth. Mr. Omenka, who was a successful businessman who deals on oil and gas, was so blessed that he flourished so well in his business, and his family lacked nothing as they lived in heaven on earth. Benita, an only child, was the center of their universe. Her parents spoiled her rotten, and she reveled in their attention. But life had other plans. When Benita was 8, her mother fell ill. Cancer ravaged her body, leaving her weak and frail. Mrs. Adugo's once radiant smile faded, replaced by pain and fatigue. Her once luscious hair fell out in clumps. Mr. Omenka was devastated. He spared no expense, seeking the best medical care for his beloved wife. But unfortunately, Mrs. Adugo's condition worsened. She passed away after some time, leaving Benita and her husband heartbroken. After the death of his wife, Benita's father tried his best to fill the void, but it was impossible. Nothing made sense to them at all. The house was so empty without Mrs. Adugo, and Benita missed her every day. Years passed and Mr. Omenka began to seek comfort elsewhere. He needed a mother figure in Benita's life, and luckily, he bagged a good one. 8 years later, Mr. Omenka's friend, Senator Okoro, invited him to a lavish party in GRA Bayelsa. At the party, he felt so alive as he noticed beautiful-looking, delicious food at the buffet, and after much inquiries, he realized that it was a young, beautiful Nchedo that pulled it all up. The food was beautifully set, and the succulent brown roasted chicken glistened with a savory sheen, while the rich savory aroma of slow-cooked stew filled the room. Mr. Omenka sought out Nchedo to compliment her. Nchedo, who is 36 years old, was so stunning, with piercing brown eye and a bright smile. "Thank you, sir. I'm glad you enjoyed the food," Nchedo said. Her voice was so melodious. Mr. Omenka was taken aback by her warmth beauty. "I am Mr. Omenka, and you are doing an excellent job," he said, extending his hand. Nchedo shook it firmly, saying, "Nchedo at your service, sir." Their conversation flowed effortlessly, covering food, business, and life. As the night wore on, Mr. Omenka found himself drawn to Nchedo's charm. "I would like to see you again," Mr. Omenka said as the party was over. Nchedo smiled, her eyes sparkling. "I would like that." And so, their relationship began. Unknowing to Mr. Omenka, Nchedo had an ulterior motive. She saw Mr. Omenka as a means to secure her future. Little did Mr. Omenka know that his life was about to take a drastic turn. Nchedo's past was marred by struggles. She grew up poor, working multiple jobs to support her family. But she was determined to rise above her circumstances. She honed her culinary skills, built a successful catering business, and set her sights on wealth. Mr. Omenka's wealth and influence made him the perfect target. Nchedo played the perfect partner, supporting Mr. Omenka through his grief. So 6 months later, Mr. Omenka proposed. Nchedo accepted, hiding her true intentions. Their lavish wedding was the talk of Bayelsa. Benita, who was 17, seethed with resentment. She saw Nchedo as an interloper, stealing her father's love. As time passed, Benita's anger towards Nchedo intensified. Benita knew that Nchedo had something up her sleeves. Nchedo harbored a dark secret. She had mastered the dark arts. Nchedo used voodoo to control Mr. Omenka, which made him forget his love for Benita. Manipulated him into converting his valuables to her name. Benita felt abandoned. Father has forsaken me, she thought. She really didn't know what to do as everything was happening so fast. She was meant to travel to Canada in order to commence her education. But unfortunately, Nchedo manipulated her father into delaying it all in the name of giving Benita a proper training before she leaves for the white man's land. Benita felt so helpless and trapped as she was automatically turned to a house girl in her own father's house. She was so helpless and tired, but she refused to succumb to Nchedo's manipulation. Benita had vowed not to eat anything prepared by Nchedo, because he who dines with the devil needs a very long spoon. On a very good day, Benita sneaked into her father's matrimonial bedroom, since Nchedo forgot to lock the door. She went in searching for her late mother's photo. Mr. Omenka had hid them away from her, since the sight of it stirred up her emotions. As she was ransacking the wardrobe, she came across a big-sized envelopes and a paper, so she was so curious to see what it contains. Lo and behold, she saw some documents that entails transfer of property to Nchedo's name. She also saw Nchedo's international passport and that of her secret young lover, who she is planning to elope with to the US. She opened her mouth wide open as she is shocked by what she saw. She wrapped it up and kept it back as she's still in search of her late mother's pictures. As she climbed to the top part of the gigantic wardrobe she opened, lo and behold, she saw a fetish calabash with her father's pictures and some padlock. She froze. Who could have thought that the perfect loving Nchedo that she portrays herself to be outside is a wolf in the sheep clothing? Benita quickly climbed down and made sure she left the room the way she met it. Indeed, the heart of man is desperately wicked. Benita acted like she saw nothing, but couldn't wrap her hair around the fact that she and her father are on the verge of losing everything to a strange woman who poses to be his wife. I have to act fast, she says. She decided to take laws into her own hands, because no one will believe her if she told them what she saw. The decision she took was a very dangerous and deadly one. But little Benita was ready to show Nchedo the monster she made. One fateful evening, Nchedo got a call to cater for a housewarming party with a total capacity of 70 people. So she was set to execute that job. That particular job was for a well-known personnel in the state, and she gave the job her best. She and her team had just rounded up the cooking and the necessary packing. They were all set. Meanwhile, after several contemplations, Benita decided to unleash her plan on that day. She sneaked to the kitchen area where the food were packed and introduced the poisonous substance to each of the coolers she could lay her hands on. When she was done, she sneaked back to her room quickly. Nchedo, on the other hand, was so happy because all her plans are going pretty smooth, and she is gradually getting everything she needs. When they arrived at the event, everything was going all fine. Meanwhile, back at home, Benita knew that the time has come to undo the evil that Nchedo has done to her father, but it came at a cost. She hurriedly rushed into the father's matrimonial bedroom with the spare key she stole from Nchedo. She brought down the calabash and smashed it on the floor. As she was at it, her father, who was in the parlor listening to the evening news, felt a surge of power. He sprang up immediately like something left his body. While at it, they got a phone call that there had been a mass death in the event his dear wife went to cater for. Immediately, Benita and her father had no choice but to pack up a few things, then run to the airport. They had to run for their own safety. Meanwhile, back at the event, people kept dying one by one. There were paramedics all over the places trying to revive them, but unfortunately, the poison was a very deadly one that kills in minutes. Nchedo was so confused. How can this be happening? What went wrong? She was running helter-skelter, but before she could say jack, an angry mob marched towards her, accusing her of witchcraft and manipulation. Nchedo attempted to flee, but the mob attacked her, beating her mercilessly. In a twist turn, the mob forced Nchedo to eat the same poison food that had been sending people back to their maker. Nchedo's eyes widened as the poison took hold of her body, writhing in agony. In a horrific finale, the mob soaked Nchedo in gasoline and set her ablaze. Nchedo's screams echoed through the night as the flames consumed her. Fearing the repercussions and mob justice, Benita and her father, Mr. Umenka, fled. Seeking refuge overseas, they left behind the mansion, wealth, and memories, trading luxury for anonymity. In a foreign land, they shared a tearful reunion, their bond renewed. Benita and her father, Mr. Umenka, started anew with the help of his friends, rebuilding their lives over there. Though free from Nchedo's grasp, Benita carried the weight of her actions. A secret known only to her while Mr. Omenka struggled with the memories of his time under Nchedo's spell. The mass death at the party sent shock news through Bayelsa, devastating numerous families. Mournful cries echoed through the streets as the news of the tragedy spread. Survivors and witnesses grappled with PTSD, anxiety, and depression. The government declared a state of emergency, mobilizing resources and personnel. A designated area in the Enogwa cemetery was prepared for the mass burial. Graves were dug, coffins procured as the bodies were buried. Indeed, the people of Bayelsa will never forget this day.